Sally's iPad, okay. So you'll let us know when we should start, right, Shauna?
Yeah. No, I'm welcoming everybody.
Great. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We're all looking forward to this. Love to cook for the holidays. Discover the food secrets of Pasadena's East Washington Boulevard. So we ask everybody if you could please mute yourselves and please turn off your video. We have somebody's.
There she goes.
Yeah, there she goes. So it's just 5 o'clock now. Thank you all for coming. We're going to wait a few minutes to start. We have lots of people coming in now.
Everybody's had a long commute, so.
Yes. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming to Love to Cook for the Holidays, our program. It's just a minute after 5 o'clock and we're going to wait for a couple more minutes so that everyone could come in. Welcome everyone. It's a little after 5 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're just delighted that you're here to Love to Cook for the Holidays. Discover the food secrets of Pasadena's East Washington Boulevard. And we're just thrilled to welcome Elisa Callow, the author of her beautiful book, The Urban Forager, Culinary Exploring and Cooking on LA's East Side. This is the cover of the beautiful book. We have it in the Pasadena Public Library. If after the program today you would like to have a copy, you can get it from Vroman's Bookstore in Pasadena and from the publisher Prospect Park Books. So I want to tell you a little bit about optimal zooming. You all probably know that by now because everybody zooms so much, but if you could mute yourself, we will be asking chat questions afterwards. And if you put your questions in the chat, I will ask them to Elisa afterwards and we will answer all of them. So you know that our doors are closed. We are providing contactless curbside service at all of our locations except Hill and Villa Park. You may make your requests with our new computer. We have our digital services are available to you 24/7 on our library webpage, and our monthly off-the-shelf keeps you informed about all of our activities. And our library staff is still providing regularly chat and reference service to you. I want to tell you that we are recording the program today so that we can put it on the Pasadena Public Library's YouTube channel. Everyone's name and private information, your name and your picture and all of that will be removed and not posted. So I want to introduce to you Elisa Callow. You can see her beautiful picture there. She's just a fabulous cook. This is the second program, actually the third program that we've planned together. She did one when her book first came out, and then we planned one for last March, a Russian cooking program to participate with our One City, One Story, Laura Prescott's book, Secrets We Kept. Unfortunately, we had to stop that one. We couldn't do it. We canceled it because of COVID. And so now we're very fortunate to be able to do this online with Zoom. This book, if you get the book, it is absolutely fabulous with what the detail it has in there for you. And I want to read the initial pages for you because it gives you a wonderful cooking start to get going. So the first chapter is about getting started, what to keep on hand, cooking equipment, and experience equals wisdom. And that's what Elisa has a lots of. The basics for the new cook, that would be me. The pantry superchargers and edible plates. Then jam, marmalade, and more. And you can see in the back behind Elisa all of the beautiful lemons, and she'll tell you why those lemons are there and what she's been doing today.
Well, the last 3 days. Last 3 days.
Then there's breakfast and brunch, soups many ways, all healthy, pasta, rice, and legumes, salads and vegetables with taste, seafood and meat, and dessert. And at the very end is the search for the great ingredients. So what we're going to do now is Elisa and I are going to have a chat about why did she use the term forager? What exactly does forager mean? And she's going to tell us about what she's been doing these past 3 days with all those lemons. So I want to introduce you to Elisa and thank you so much for doing this fabulous baking show for us. Lisa and I are going to chat. Then we're going to have a PowerPoint showing all these wonderful establishments on East Washington Boulevard. We have a special map that will help you walk from Lake to Altadena Drive on Washington Boulevard. You can get a copy of that map from Pasadena Central, curbside, and at Santa Catalina Branch that is on Washington Boulevard. So with that, I want to introduce you to Elisa. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited to, I'm putting this in quotes, be here. And I'm really happy to talk about something that I've grown to become obsessed with in a very healthy way, and that is the idea of foraging. And the term urban foraging, though, is more about looking around you and finding the little stores, the stores that represent various cultures that you might just kind of walk by and not pay a lot of attention to. And so nowadays that we're not traveling widely, you can actually find yourself traveling through multitudes of communities representing multitudes of countries just by walking and looking at these smaller community-based stores in Pasadena. For me, I came from an arts background. I was the first director, the founding director of the Armory Center for the Arts, which is a community arts institution. And for me, it was very easy to understand that there's a very short jump between community arts and community table, as it were. That is finding out about culture through what people eat and enjoy. And in a way, it's much more accessible than the arts, because everyone thinks that, I'm not an artist, I can't do this, but everyone eats. And many of us do cook, whether it's well or as beginners. So really, the idea of living in Pasadena particularly was a real generative force behind creating this cookbook, because I'm the kind of person that just drives down the street, and if I see something interesting, I literally will stop, pull over, and walk into a place that I've never seen before. So that's foraging to me in terms of urban foraging. It's not finding wild mushrooms, which a lot of people do. This is really looking for the beautiful and cultural heritage of our community through its food and food makers.
Thank you very much. So everybody, I'm sure, wants to know about those beautiful lemons in the background.
And I forgot about my beautiful lemons.
Past 3 days.
Well, I've been making 100 jars of marmalade, two kinds. I actually was foraging by mistake. I was taking a walk in my community, and there were 2 bags of Bear's limes or Persian limes on the road. You know, people leave stuff out if they have too much. So I took them home. I carried these bags as I'm hiking home, and but I had made a plan to do create marmalade to support an organization called Fair Fight in Georgia. And I thought if I sell my jam, let's see what happens. And so far I've had 1 jam sale, and last week I sold $1,000 worth of jam and marmalade. And this week I'm selling probably $1,500 worth of marmalade, but it meant 3 days of making marmalade. It's a very, very involved process. The Bear's limes, though, just to kind of reinforce the idea of seasonal foraging, there's the foraging through the little stores. There's the foraging of your historical background, like, you know, foraging, like sitting your grandma down and asking her, how did you make this? That's a form of foraging. But another is just paying attention to seasonal fruit and what's available. And Altadena and Pasadena in general are like the citrus capital, I think, of Southern California. And there we're sitting literally on the sidewalk were 2 bags of beautiful limes. So I created a new kind of marmalade. I had never made it before. I looked up how to make lime marmalade, and I added a few other things, and it's really beautiful, delicious. So, yeah.
So you're really taking advantage of all the seasonal bounty here in Pasadena and this area. So do you go to a lot of farmers markets too, when you're able to go to farmers markets?
Actually, yeah, and I want to make a case for farmers markets as being one of the safer ways to purchase food. I do write a food blog. I've been a little bit lazy about doing it regularly. It used to come out every 2 weeks, but when COVID hit, I was deeply fearful, as we all are, about what is possible, what should we do, what is responsible. And the farmers markets were really suffering because they were closed down in the city of Los Angeles, for example. They weren't in Pasadena, but there was this deep fear that this is, again, a dangerous thing to do. Something that we love, that gives us joy, is suddenly dangerous. But I did quite a bit of research and wrote a blog post about farmers markets. And they are some of the safest places to purchase food. For one thing, the chain of distribution is really short. You're not going from somewhere to somewhere with the food being held and moved by a number of people. It's the farmer, and then it's the farmer. In many really good farmers markets, they prevent people from touching the food. And if they're really doing a careful job, they're stopping the influx of too many people, and you're outdoors. So if you are like me, where you just can't give up being in community a little bit, farmers markets are a great place to go. And yeah, right now it's citrus season. So I think it's if your security allows you to do it, do it. You know, this is very personal now.
So are there farmers markets in the Pasadena, Los Angeles area that are open?
All of them, pretty much all of them are open. There's a few that are closed in places like San Luis Obispo where they were, but most of them are open now. Yeah. All of the Pasadena farmers markets are open that I know of. I've been to most of them. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's lots of fun. A lot of fun. So did you grow up foraging, you know, technically, or urban foraging, or different? You've lived all around too.
Yeah, I think that is, I think we can decide deeply whether or not we're explorers or not. And exploration to me started very young. I did live overseas. My parents were in the Peace Corps. And at a very, very formative age, 11 through 15, I lived in the Philippines and in Malaysia. And at that time, there weren't a lot of farmers markets in this country, but they are de rigueur in most countries. So suddenly I was placed, first of all, I was the only blonde person in my community in the Philippines. You'll see a picture later that proves it. So I was definitely another, but I loved being out in markets and walking into places that I'd never seen before. And I really think that's how my explorer tendencies emerged. I also think my parents were really supportive of placing me in situations that could be challenging and giving me a sense that I could do it. And I think, you know, in speaking of foraging, and exploring, I have a couple of quotes that I like. One is from Rebecca Solnit, and she's written a number of books, and one of my favorites is called A Field Guide to Getting Lost. And she says, I love going out of my way beyond what I know and finding my way back a few extra miles by another trail with a compass that argues with the map. And that is me. I mean, I very rarely, unless I have to, take the freeway because I'm going to miss all that stuff between where I'm coming from and where I'm going, all those little streets. That's partly why I love Google Lady, because sometimes you find yourself in places you'll never, ever find again because the route is new. And that's what I do. I don't mind taking more time. I want to mention too that the foraging piece also means connecting with other people who are lovers of food. And in this particular book, when I went to the publisher, Colleen Dunn Bates, who is the publisher of Prospect Park Books, and showed her the idea for the book, she said, you know, you really need to extend out from Pasadena, because originally this was going to be all about Pasadena only. She said, you won't have enough of a market, so look at the whole East Side. And that was daunting to me. But then I thought, you know what? As a community arts person, I always worked in sort of a collaborative style. What if I found some chefs who represented different areas and communities within the East Side? And from that, the book got so much richer because I was able to involve sort of food curators. One you will know probably pretty well, or a lot of you will, is Sumi Chang, who was the founding owner of Euro Pane and really brought fabulous French pastry to Pasadena and was one of the real pioneers of great baking in this area. And her colleague, Masako Yatabe Thompson. Now, one of the things I love about them is Masako is Japanese, born in Tokyo, and Sumi Chang is Korean. Neither one of those cultures has French pastry as their core form of cuisine, and yet that's one of the things I love about them is they were delighted learners and they became expert at something that had very little to do with their own culture. Jack Agoyan is another chef. He's a cook now, but his family owned one of the original Armenian restaurants in Pasadena called Middle East Restaurant in Altadena. Rumi Mahmood, who's a home cook, engineer by trade, who's from Bangladesh, brilliant curries. Min Fan is probably the most well-known in LA now because she's the purveyor of porridge and puffs, an incredible little restaurant in historic Filipino town. And her restaurant was listed as one of the top 50 restaurants in the country, even though it's really little and not fancy. And Mario Rodriguez, who is also a home cook like me, who's just a fabulous cook. And his background, he's from East LA, Boyle Heights area, grew up with this massive family from Mexico, Texas, New Mexico, and LA. And his food culture is that culture of asking grandma and auntie and so on, how do you do this? So the book is pretty rich. It has the stories of each of these people, which made it really, I'm happy to say LAist called it the Essential LA Cookbook, because it is so much about how community comes together around food in this wonderful place. So.
Well, it is a fabulous book, and it's a book that you can just plain enjoy reading. If you aren't a cook, you can just read it and just enjoy it and want to go out and try new things. It really makes you try things. So what is your first memory of cooking? Do you have a memory?
I do, and it's kind of funny. My mother was a horrible cook, horrible. And I say this with great love. She wasn't interested in cooking. And so my first experience with cooking was in self-defense because I didn't want to eat her food. And so I told her I would take over. And I was probably 7 or 8 years old and I started cooking family dinners.
Oh, what was your first thing What was your first thing that you cooked? Can you remember that?
Yes, I can. I can remember. It's very unexciting. It was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for my lunch because I hated the way she made our lunches. And it was just a mess. So I said I would start making my brother's and my lunch. So it wasn't very interesting, but no, I think but to answer your question about being overseas, it's such a rich experience because you learn something that I like to call food cousins. And that is that there are food ingredients that are similar to what we're used to and comfortable with, but in another culture, it's a little different. Like, did you know fish sauce actually is made of anchovies and has this wonderful umami kind of taste? It's very salty. You can use it instead of salt. Or that ketchup actually came out of fish sauce originally. So there's all these wonderful kinds of things that you find out from trying things because it's all around you in another culture. You can't find your usual stuff. You know, actually, this tastes a little like a something. And the other thing that you learn from being in other cultures is a depth of understanding about what they do. Like, I learned from Masako, who's a Japanese person, that if you whip butter and sugar longer, it gets really light and makes a much better textured cake. I learned that you blacken your chilies first before you make salsa. Don't make that tomatoey thing that I get laughed at about my version of salsa. That when you make curries, you have to cook and heat the spices first for a very long time. Don't add water right away or it'll get watery and it'll lose that kind of brilliant textural taste that you want from curries. There's just a lot of things that you learn from not being afraid to ask. I think that's another part of being a good explorer, and that is to say, go into a little store, for example. If you see things you don't know, instead of getting all nervous because you're untutored, you say, wow, I've never seen this before. Can you tell me something about it, to the store owner? And guess what? They love it. Because many of these tiny stores are owned and run by the actual families. They're not, great big superstores. It's very personal to them. And so showing interest in being a learner is another way to get into exploring. So.
Oh, okay. So you really, really want us to, in addition to foraging and going out, we need to just really trust ourselves and try new tastes, go to new places, and explore, constant explore. So now should we go and start to explore along East Washington Boulevard in Pasadena? Because that's
yes.
a 2 mile walk from Lake to Altadena, and you can go along the way. You really need a shopping cart with you to go on the way, and you find all sorts of wonderful things. So we're going to start our PowerPoint in just a few minutes, and Elisa's going to talk about, we have a wonderful map, as I said, that you can get that will help you go from place to place and see what you want. So Elisa, this is Elisa's cover of her book.
This is the cover, and there's not much else to say about it except that I wanted it to be a kind of combination of those old-timey looking recipes that we all collect. That is so much a part of sort of honoring our family history and culture, and that whole idea that you're kind of capturing bits and pieces as you move along, and you hold it and you turn it into your own. So let's go on to the next slide. Shauna, there we go. This is where you can find it. And please do support our local stores. So I would also recommend that you look at Vroman's, which is one of Pasadena's finest. I want to also mention Anne Elliott Cutting is an amazing photographer. Working with her was a complete joy. I would actually cook the food that you see. It's not pretend food like a lot of cookbooks, and her husband would often show up at the end of the photo shoot and go, can I have some? So we would eat afterwards. So next slide. So one of the couple of things just to show you is this little map that's on your right. At the end of the book, before you get into the search for great ingredients, there's a wonderful map of the east side of LA as illustrated by Simone Rain, who is also a local person. She lives in Altadena, and I've known her since she was 2. And I asked her to do a lot of the illustrations in this book, but my favorite is this map, where you can look at, it's numbered, you can't really see it well. You can look at a cluster of numbers and say, wow, I'm going to go to that area on the east side, whether it's Pasadena, which is up at the north end. There's a ton of little numbers. I'm actually going to look at these places because they're really close by. So it's a great tool. And then each of those numbers refers to information that follows on the subsequent pages about the store and where it's located and what it sells. So next slide. So, oh, we missed it. So there we are. There I am. Guess which one am I? I'm the blonde one in the middle, and in the back is my stepmother with the other blonde one. And you can see that I kind of stuck out. We were living in a very rural area. There were very few non-Filipino people. And because of that, I really was living within the context of a very rich and interesting and welcoming culture, and tried food that I had never had before. So that's the young woman to the right of me, who's the same height, is Helen Jones. Still remember her. Her father was an American serviceman, and her mother was Filipina.
Oh, so this is where you actually started your foraging.
This was big time foraging. Yeah, this was going to the open markets and buying fish from fishmongers and finding wonderful fruits like calamansi, and watching people climb up palm trees to get something called tuba, which is a drink from the fruit there. And you'd bring it down, and it would be this wonderful sweet drink in the morning. And by 5 p.m., you'd be completely schnockered. It'd be coming out. Drink. I wasn't allowed to drink it after 10 in the morning. I think that was the rule. Yeah, so next slide. So this is the map I was talking about. I didn't realize we had it. So you can see this is a gorgeous little piece of drawing by Simone. And the upper middle part is the Pasadena area. So you see it's very well represented. And a lot of it is Washington Boulevard. So next slide. And let's start. So if we are to start on the western end at Lake and Washington, we will find a beautiful little bakery called C Bakery. I think some of you may know about it. It was started, I think, about 3 years ago. And the baker is a man, let me find his name, named Joseph Abrakian, and his wife Pam Watanabe. Joseph actually studied with a French baker for 6 months. But more importantly, he's a lover of whole grains that he mills himself. So he finds local grain farmers, and he builds his beautiful breads out of these grains. This is a really important piece of information for those of you. I'm going to get a little nerdy for just a second, because if you can imagine, if there's enough bakers that are creating a market for heirloom grains, it means that the farmers are going to change their growing patterns, because for many, many years, we just really were focused on a very narrow band of wheat and other grains. And now we're using amaranth and barley, and my favorite favorite grain is a wheat called Bergman. We're using rye more, einkorn. And all of these grains being used by bakers who are really committed to healthier food too, mean that the farmers have a market. One of my favorite stories is my husband and I just recently started camping again because of COVID, and we camped on a beautiful wheat farm. And the man was so taken by the idea of growing heirloom grains that he's creating a whole area growing Sonora, which is the earliest wheat that was grown in California. It's from the Spaniards. And I do make bread with Sonora. In fact, I will show it to you at the end. I made some today. Here it is, but I'll show it to you. This is a gorgeous heirloom loaf I made today with Sonora, rye, and einkorn. Anyway, next slide. You want to see, this is where they're located. So they are literally just one store in from the corner of Washington and Lake on the south side of the street. Right now you can't go inside, but they do have a window, and they show all their beautiful baked goods in a number of other windows so you can see what you're buying. Next slide. And this is what it looked like when pre-COVID. There's Joseph and Pam when they were first opening. And you can see the beautiful breads that they have. In fact, you can see the word Sonora in the background. And he's talking about it as an ancient wheat. He's very proud of the fact that he's using a variety of wheat. And he is a fantastic baker. He's also really good at making things like croissant because of his training with the French chef, his chef baker. And so that's called laminated dough baking, and I will never do it. It's too hard. Next slide, please. And that's some of his beautiful bread. You may wonder what these lines are on the bread or on my bread. It's because in your second rise, you can put bread in something called a banneton, which is a bamboo basket that has a coiled structure. And so when you put your bread in to rise, it actually picks up that beautiful coil pattern. They also all bakers cut into their bread to say, this is me. I didn't do it this time, I just did a 3. So you may notice he's doing a specific 3-part cut on his breads. Okay, let's keep going. Taking too long with Joseph. Keep going, getting hungry. Okay, next, Bacchus Kitchen. We're looking at a restaurateur who has managed through his imagination and wonderful food to stay alive. This is Claude Beltran. He's, I think, again, Bacchus is a fairly new institution on the scene. And he went from outdoor dining, and now we're doing only takeout, but his takeout food is really fun. Last night we did a takeout from him, and he's doing a whole series called TV Dinners, where he's doing food of the 50s, and he's putting it in aluminum little trays, but the food is 1,000 times better. We had chicken cordon bleu and mashed potatoes and the peas and carrots and green beans, but it tasted really different than Swanson's. So let's look at what else. It was fabulous. So Claude is the one with the glasses, holding one of the wine glasses. That's Claude with his team, looking the way we all look. It's a delightful restaurant. He also does a lot of, he also involves musicians, jazz musicians. And in the days when we were dining in, he would have concerts and dinners. Keep going. And this is, he's got all these themes. So one is British pub night, and I put that one on because he was doing fish and chips, one of my favorite foods. And you can see the prices are very reasonable, $25 per person for a full meal. Next. Oh, there we are, but the fish and chips. Keep going, please. Or you can get bangers and mash. That's what it looks like when you could eat outside, and I think this will happen again. It's a beautiful little place. Keep going. And now Culture Club. So culture as in yogurt type culture. Food that's really good for you because it deals with gut health. Not a very sexy topic, but they have wonderful food here. It's a market, and they did have inside dining, but now again it's all takeout. So I don't have too many pictures from them, but it's a beautiful space where you can get kombuchas and kraut, sauerkrauts. They have also some really, if we can keep moving, let's see if we have, yeah, they have these things, I call it crack cocaine, coconut cracked almonds. You can't stop eating them, so they do all kinds of nuts and just really interesting food. And they're doing quite well, as you can see. Everything says low stock. So it's a healthy place to eat where the food actually tastes good. And keep going. That is, by the way, right next door to Bacchus Kitchen. I want to remind you that it's as if we were walking down the street. So we're now like just a few blocks east of Lake on Washington. Here you can see some of their homemade kombuchas. They have a whole area in the back when they used to let you go inside. and I guess they still let you go inside, but you can't kind of wander around too long. They have a whole room where they're making their kombucha, and the colors are just beautiful. Keep going. Okay, so across the street and down a little bit is a wonderful Armenian market called Pasadena Marketplace. Let's look at what it might look like. Next slide. Whoops, we didn't get that change. That's from Culture 101, sorry. Just keep moving. But this is the kind of food that, you know, they have wonderful vegetables and fruits at Pasadena Market. They have a deli there with Armenian sandwiches that are made. Really, really a beautiful all-in small market. And when you go there, it's not too crowded, so you're not freaking out that, oh my God, what's happening here? Really nice service, very, very fresh, beautiful food. So these fruits are from Pasadena Marketplace. Keep going, please. Then, oh, this place. This is Suborg and Manta Factory. This place, I want to also remind you, and we're continuing going east, and now we're on the south side, that these places look often not gorgeous from the outside, because all of the owners' commitment is to the food itself. So sometimes you look at it and go, I'm not going in there. And then you go in there and it's an immaculate, lovely, tiny place where they just haven't put a lot of money in the sort of traditional ways of making the exterior look fancy or alluring. So let's go to the next slide. So here is one of the owners of Suborg and Manta Factory, and this is Grant. I'm going to try to say his name correctly. Yegiazarian. And Grant is actually rolling out noodles for his beautiful Suborg. I mean, this is one of the great comfort foods. It's a series of thin noodles, homemade, with cheese, various cheeses in between. So it's kind of an Armenian lasagna. And when I went and met with him, he said, you know, my rolling pin is an extension of me. This is the only reason I can do these noodles so well. All of the recipes, and they only do 3 things in this little place, the size of a shoebox, are from their family. They make a salmon sandwich. I have no idea why. It's wild salmon. They make Suborg, and they make Manta, which you're going to see in a minute. So let's keep going. So that's what Suborg looks like when it's cooked. It's such a dangerous thing to eat because you can't stop. It's very inexpensive too. Let's keep going. And then this is what Manta looks like. Again, look at this handmade noodles filled with a beautifully spiced meat. Handmade with all these little, they make these little shapes that look like fish. And these are really delicious with a little sauce on them. So keep going. Ann Cutting, the photographer of the cookbook, was with me. You can tell these are not my photographs. Somebody who knows what they're doing did it, but she just went completely crazy with how beautiful this food looks. Next one. That's what they look like when they're done. These little noodles, hand-shaped with gorgeous hand-ground meat. Next. Okay, Aladdin Nut House. This is truly one of my favorite places. I've been going to this nut house for probably 10 years. And the owner is Gary Karalikian. So let's look at the next slide. And look at that. So Gary roasts all of his own nuts. He purchases them from all over the world. He also has dried fruits, really good for this time of year. Usually when you go there, for those of you who are nervous about COVID, it's Gary and you, and he wears a mask, he wears gloves. The place is immaculate. And he's just like, one time I said to him, well, Gary, why don't you have the dried cherries I want? He said, because they weren't that good this time, so I'm waiting for better cherries. He's got really high standards. He has like 3 different kinds of pistachios, just as an example. Next slide. See, this is also, he sells spices. You also are going to see what one would call Mediterranean Delight if you're in an Armenian store, and not Turkish Delight for obvious reasons. So in the top right bucket is some Mediterranean Delight. Keep going. There he is. He's a really sweet guy. Now you'll see him with a mask on. He also makes gift baskets. This is a, oops, let's go to that next slide. That's one of my favorite slides. This is one of Anne's beautiful slides. These are all purchased at Aladdin Nut House. They're variations on Mediterranean Delight, and that pink color that you see around some of the candy are rose petals. If you want an esoteric, beautiful thing to try, get some of these. And especially around the holidays, he gets all kinds of beautiful, beautiful candies. So let's keep going. Okay, one of the newest members of the Washington Boulevard Great Food Way is what I like to call it, is Sapori, D 786 degrees. And this is a pizza place where they make pizza. They bake pizza at 786 degrees. So you literally order and it's done in about 5 minutes. Let's look at some of the next slides. So Sapori is also owned by a man who is Muslim. So he has a cross-cultural pizza experience awaiting you. He makes things with sort of, he's Indian, part Indian, and I can't remember his other background, but he'll make things with Indian food flavors as well as traditional Italian. All of these pizzas are delicious. And he's now giving away pizzas to families in need. There's a lot of that here. Even though the food purveyors are struggling, Alta Eats, which is not in this list, but a restaurant nearby, is giving free food on, I can't remember what day, to first responders. And this is very typical. Anyway, it's a really fun place. You can order and just pick up curbside. Next. Oh, this is what it looks like. They're very proud of their ovens. The ovens are from Naples, he told me. So he was very clear about letting me know that he studied there. Okay, next slide. And this is, oh good, this is an example of some of the pizza experiences you can get there. So fungi llama, I've gotten a Korean inspired pizza, a Bombay tikka masala pizza. I tend to be more the Italian pizza kind of gal, but these are really good. Next slide. Okay, Garni. These, I adore this little market. Let's go to see what it looks like inside, or outside, excuse me. So outside, this is to give you an idea that you're not going to be looking at the most aesthetic looking place from the outside, but let's go inside. There we have the owners, and this is Alex and Harut Kajoyan. These guys happen to be cousins of Jack Agoyan, one of the chefs in the cookbook, which is very common in the Armenian community in Pasadena. They have an immaculate, beautiful butcher store. They do catering. They will grind meat to whatever preference you have. So if you're making meatballs, you might want it coarser than others. They sell beautiful lamb. They make their own yogurt and all of those gorgeous Armenian dips that we all love, like hummus and baba ganoush. And they are two of the sweetest people on the planet. Now, since that picture was taken, Alex, the father, has retired and Harut is in charge. And nothing has gone down. It stayed lovely. One of the things I love about this place is they have a kind of trifecta of things they love. There's a postcard of Jonathan Gold, the great food critic, the great late food critic of the Los Angeles Times, because Jonathan used to go to this little store frequently. He lived nearby. They have a cross because they're quite religious, and then they also have the Urban Forager. That's their troika of important things because they're in the cookbook. And in fact, I think that photograph is in the cookbook. Let's keep going. There they are, showing some of their marinated chicken and one of their dips. Keep going. Deluxe 1717. Now, you're going to see a video. We should move on. I think I'm going too slowly. Very soon of O'Neill and I baking cookies and then making variations of them for the holidays. But O'Neill is a well-known local caterer, and he's doing a bang-up business of something called Wonderful Wednesdays. You can order a full meal delivered to your home to eat on Wednesdays, and they are 3-course meals, delicious. So let's move through this a little more quickly. That's, whoops, yeah. Can we go back just quick? Sorry. So you get a bag with this recipe, this instruction on how to reheat. And let's go to next. There's O'Neill packing them up, and keep moving. There's some of the wonderful dishes that he's getting ready, and keep going. And another, I'm really hungry now. Now, just to go more quickly, Bloomfield Creamery on Washington Boulevard, there are 2 great ice cream stores. Sometimes you'll drive all over LA going, I just really don't want frozen yogurt. And here in our little area of Washington Boulevard, there are 2 extremely good ice cream stores. And one of them is Bloomfield Creamery. So let's go on. And there are the 2 owners from Michigan. And their ice cream is rich and sweet and delicious and incredibly fattening, but joyful. Okay, let's keep going. Keep going. And then this was the latest one I found. So this place just looks very unprepossessing from the exterior. And I was sort of like, okay, I'm going to look because Christine asked me to be really thorough. So let's go in and see what kind of stuff you get. So this is Larvine. It's a chocolatier, and he named the store after his daughter, he told me. But, it doesn't look like, wow, this is an incredibly aesthetic store. I'm going to go in. So let's look at what their chocolates look like. And that's what you get at Larvine. This collection of chocolates was like something out of a beautiful chocolatier in Paris. I couldn't believe it. The 2 green ones are pistachio, as is the darker kind of brownish green. It's a different version of pistachio. And they were really exquisite chocolates. Okay, keep going. Sarkis Bakery, many of you may know Sarkis, a sweet and savory bakery of Armenian baked goods. Let's look inside. That's the outside, sorry. And it's right next door to Larvine. So I went there just because Christine asked me to double check, and then I got to eat all kinds of things. So these are borgs filled with potato and spinach, and on the right, just a flat bread with, I think, I'm trying to remember I'm blanking on the spice. It will come to me in a second. Very common. Keep going. Carmela's is the last place that we are going to talk about, another ice cream store. And this was one of the first great ice cream stores, actually before Bloomfield, and they began by selling at farmers markets. And they did well enough to have their own actual brick and mortar store. So their flavors are exquisite and really unusual. I'll show you in a minute. So here are the founders. They have this nice little truck, and you probably have seen it at some of your farmers markets. And they started in 2007, I see. Let's keep going. And these are the ingredients to many of their gorgeous sorbets and ice creams. Keep going. There's a lot of these and more, and so on. So that's it.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, I took too long.
Oh, no. I can remember we used to go up when our children were living here, and now they're grown up and moved away with their families. But we used to get the bûche de Noël from Sarkis Pastry. Absolutely fabulous. And I'm sure they're still making it. It's beautifully decorated. And Carmela's ice cream used to have a little cart that would come in front of Pasadena Central Library in the summertime, and you could walk over and get ice cream. It was just absolutely wonderful. So this is a fabulous journey. Wonderful locations up and down Washington Boulevard, and what a treat to know that they're so close to us.
2 miles, and that's it. So if you walk, you can walk off what you're eating, right? I do want to say about Sarkis, it's really fun to go in there and just say, tell me what I should try. And people they all have opinions. It's great. Okay,
So, well, thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful. And please, everyone, get your map and take the stroll up and down Washington Boulevard. Maybe do it in several days, and you'll get a lot of wonderful cooking treats. Now we're going to show the Pasadena Baking, which is the baking show, which is the takeoff after the Great British Baking Show. So if you just love that, you're going to absolutely love this video, and you're going to just so enjoy it. And Elisa is making special cookies and showing you how to make them and how to decorate them. And the recipes for the cookies are in our event calendar, so that you can actually get the recipe and follow and make the cookies. So
I just want to, yeah, can I just say it's only 7 minutes. It's only 7 minutes, not too long. And so I'm just concerned that if anybody has questions that we're able to answer them afterwards. You want to do it afterwards, right?
Well, whatever you want to do. Do you want to answer questions now before you show the video?
Either way, I'm fine. I just want to let people know it's a short and fun little video, actually.
It's a very, very fun video.
With O'Neill Chubas.
Do people have questions? Do you want to ask questions? I don't see any questions right now.
Okay.
No, I don't see any questions.
Can we go with your next time to eat? That's somebody asked a question. Can we go with your next time to eat?
They want to go with you. They'd like to. Do you give walking tours?
I was going to, and then COVID hit. I was going to work with LA Commons, which is a wonderful organization that deals really supports neighborhoods, getting to know other neighborhoods. And they encourage people from all over the city to, meet at a neighborhood that's new to them. But we people from Pasadena can come too. And I was supposed to do a food walk, but maybe it'll happen in 2021.
Well, let's hope so. We absolutely hope so.
And I did also a walk through in the El Mercado de Los Angeles with Mario Rodriguez, and that was really fun. So yeah, hopefully.
That would be very, very special. You'll have to sure and let us, and we will put that on our chat. So somebody wants to know do these stores open up early in the morning, or is it best to go around noontime, or do you really need to contact them?
Yeah, I would. On your list, I think you have a website connection.
A website on the map.
And I do want to say that during COVID, most of them are open in the morning, and by about 9 o'clock, they're mostly open. But just double check. Sometimes they roll in a little later because it's a one-person shop. Sometimes, like many times with Aladdin, I don't go at 9 anymore. I go at 9:30 because sometimes Gary rolls in a little later. But generally in the morning, they're open. You can always call before you're going. And do remember that if you're new to something and you don't know what it is, ask. They love talking about their food. So it's great. That's how I walked out of there with beautiful potato borag. I wouldn't have gotten it. It was my favorite thing. So yeah.
Well, that's a good tip to know. And somebody said that they've missed where to get the map. Now you can get the map from Pasadena Central Library at curbside, and you can get the map printed for you from Santa Catalina branch on Washington Boulevard.
And is it also online, so they can go to the links by looking at it on your website?
I believe it is. I'm not absolutely positive.
Probably easier.
We will check that. Then people can print it off
in the
themselves.
calendar entry.
And also we will send the recording and all links out to all who registered after the program. And we also have this recording in the short video on the Pasadena Public Library's YouTube channel. Okay. So are there any other questions? No, but everybody's just so enjoyed the program. You've done such a wonderful job. And what a treat to have you, Elisa. And what a treat it would be to be able to take a tour with you, a walking tour. I
would love it.
Wonderful.
Let's plan for it when everybody's able to hug and kiss again.
Yes, that would be absolutely wonderful. So now please everybody stay, because you will really enjoy the Pasadena Baking Show. So I'm going to show that wonderful video to you. And we're very fortunate to be able to have had it made for us. It's actually showed at the Altadena Heritage, first of all, and then they adapted it for the Pasadena Library.
Chabas, and I'm the owner of Deluxe 1717, and we are here to make some holiday treats.
Hi, I'm Elisa Callow. I live in Altadena, and I love it. I'm also the author of the Urban Forager, a cookbook about cooking and exploring the food of the Eastside. I'm also a good friend of O'Neill Chabas. We are in his beautiful dining area and kitchen, and we'll be experimenting with cookies and a gorgeous recipe called Cremo. The cookies are the almond angel cookies, and O'Neill's going to be playing with them in multitudes of ways. Thanks.
Hi, we're here in O'Neill's kitchen. It is November 5th, so if you hear any nervousness in my voice, you know why. This morning, it's a really good idea to make cookies, I think. And these cookies are really simple. It requires no great cooking ability, and I really mean this. So we're going to make some. We also have some ready, just like a real cooking show. That's where O'Neill takes over, but I'm going to show you how you make these. So you have 1 1/3 cups almonds, and notice they're not even blanched. And the almonds were purchased from the wonderful nut house down the street, very close by to Altadena. Buy your nuts there. Okay, that's the end of that commercial. 1 1/2 cups of sugar.
Oh, okay.
Lots of sugar, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And 3 egg whites, which I've done ahead of time so I don't screw it up. And you just pour those in too.
Oh, so you don't have to process the nuts first?
No!
Oh,
Why should
good
you
to-
do that when you don't want to? Here, act like you
Thank you.
There, it's disappeared. The other thing you do is add a full teaspoon of vanilla
Oh.
and a full teaspoon of almond extract. Now this is a little bit more, it's a little heavier, but it does the same thing. Okay. Boy, that was really difficult, wasn't it? Okay, so now they're gone. And then you have to go over here. This is the really hard part. This is the area you can make your one mistake. I'm kidding. You just turn on your food processor. So you can see it's just this kind of gooey little mixture. It smells really good, doesn't it? It's got a kind of almondy, vanilla-y thing going with it. Lots of sugar. So this is also amazingly easy. A little hint, don't put a lot on. These things grow, you'll see in a minute. So you just take like, not even a teaspoon, but just get a little messy. Let's just make a tiny bit here because we have some already made. If you want to, you can also consider these a plate for other delicious things, almost like a crust, a very sweet crust, but fantastic. And O'Neill's going to show you how to do that. And again, you don't want to make these super big because they are going to grow. But do you want to do that, O'Neill? You just, I can tell you're just leaning over here. I'm going to get over the way and O'Neill's going to do one. Because he's very good at this.
So I'm just going to make one the size that you were making. So about a half a teaspoon?
Well, just a little one. Yeah, you're going to do a small one.
Okay, and you space them then pretty far apart because they're going to spread a little bit.
Yeah, you'll see in a second how incredibly large they are.
Well, it's amazing.
And it's such a lovely batter, isn't it?
And it comes together so quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to.
And so do you have to spread them out much, or they
No,
just
leave
kind
it
of
alone. Leave it
Okay.
alone. Just clean up your mess. And then you can do some lovely little decorative things.
So you're putting just some
roasted almonds. that
Okay,
are
some
plain.
slivered almonds.
Yeah,
that
don't
were
put, and now you can put the
blanched.
cherries on, which we'll talk about. But one of our favorite things, one of the most expensive things you can use if you really want to show off, are these Luxardo original maraschino cherries. So O'Neill, because he loves them, is going to do these two, which is putting a little cherry in the
Or
center.
cherry on top. I love
And
it.
cherry on that and cherry on that. You'll see that again, it's just such a nothing to do this.
Oh, this is great, but they're gonna look. Oh,
That's okay, that's because it's a real show and not a pretend one.
oh.
Okay, so. Okay, so it's been a few minutes and I'm going to just very quickly go under and loosen them off the parchment paper. Do not try baking these on an oil baking sheet or half sheet. You'll cry. They will
So
not
they
come
need to be
out.
on some parchment paper. Just
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Great to know.
And look how easily they come up. Right, now I'm going to put this one back in just because it's really not done enough. It's kind of too fragile,
Yeah.
but this is what it should look like.
Okay, yeah.
And we'll be ready to go, O'Neill.
This gives me a lot of ideas. I think what I would like to do is imagine these as an ice cream sandwich. And I got some really nice ice cream. So I think these would be good with coffee. Another idea I think that would be very good with these delicious cookies is to make it the crunch part of a dessert. So I have made a chocolate crème, and it's basically a very easy to make chocolate pudding, essentially. I'm going to have this as the chocolatey portion of the dessert. I've put a few little scoops in here to get that started. We want to have a creamy component to our dessert, so a little bit of whipped heavy cream. Has a little sugar and a little bit of whipped cream. Okay, so let's get a little bit, little dollop of whipped cream.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
It's a good thing I didn't eat much this morning.
and then let's take one of the.
How about the one with chocolate? Because you
Yeah.
have chocolate in there too.
Put a little chocolatey cookie.
Yeah, the one
We'll
with chocolate.
put that there. Little. And I think then maybe some raspberries for color here and there. Maybe a couple of blueberries. And this is kind of a simple dessert that that you can pull together quickly. Inclusion mint.
What I like about this idea is it looks really gorgeous and complicated, but the cremo you can make the day before.
Absolutely.
These cookies last at least 2 weeks if you put them in an airtight container. So really you could have all this stuff done and look like a little genius.
So I love these big cookies that Elisa's made, and it gives me an idea for another dessert. And we're going to make a pavlova of sorts, since these are a meringue. So since we are in Altadena, we're going to rename it. We're going to call it the Altalova. So that's a joke. So we're going to put a little cream down first, just to hold the cookie in place. so it doesn't slide. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take just a nice dollop of,
Nice, 2 dollops.
a couple of dollops of this wonderful cream, and we're just going to kind of make a little well here, go all around. And then we're going to take some of this delicious passion fruit curd and just put a nice big spoonful in the center, like that. And then we're going to, again, take some nice berries, and you can use whatever kinds of fruit that you have. You could use persimmons, you know, just anything that's seasonal.
Well, talk about the flavor profile, so Neil, of
Yeah.
almondy, kind of a
So
very
it's a
rich
very
almondy
almondy cookie. I mean, and so because of that, it's kind of delicious but neutral. It can work with chocolate. It can work with fruit. It can work with passion fruit. It can work with berries. And I think that to have something that's so versatile in cream is just terrific. So I think we just, you know, this doesn't have to be perfect. So just a few berries scattered here and there. Also, what might be nice is a little bit of powdered sugar, just to make it. And let's see, what else could we put on here? Maybe a little bit of mint, just for garnish. And you know, this is also a place where you could, if you had a sauce, it would be very nice as well. Maybe like a raspberry sauce or something like that. So maybe just a little bit of mint here, something like that.
Okay, so the last thing I would suggest playing around with is a Jackson Pollock cookie. And my grandson, who's 7, loves this part of baking because you make a huge mess. You take just semi-sweet chocolate and melt it over a double boiler or in your microwave until it's liquidy, and you just do this. And you create these really beautiful kind of chocolatey toppings for these cookies, which also taste great with almonds. But look at that, isn't that gorgeous? So.
Wasn't that fun? Didn't we enjoy that so much? And what a wonderful program. Elisa, thank you so much. Our stroll down Washington Boulevard was fascinating. Your book is absolutely wonderful, The Urban Forager. It is so detailed. It helps you start if you've never been a cook, what to do. Recipes, wonderful cooks are highlighted, and then all of the locations at the back. Besides, it's not just locations in Pasadena. As you said, you can go over to Glendale, Highland Park. So it's wonderful. It's a fabulous book. And remember, you can get it at Vroman's, and you can get it from the publisher, Prospect Park Books.
Yes, they are mailing. If you're really concerned about going into stores, they're actually mailing Prospect Park Books. So Yeah, so I thoroughly enjoyed this. I haven't done a Zoom talk this long, so I appreciate your patience, everyone. And
Oh, well, it was absolutely enjoyable. I think everybody just enjoyed it so much. And please remember, if you've missed a part of it or want to see it again, you can go to Pasadena Public Library's YouTube channel. And I think a lot of people are saying they're off to buy almonds and make some cookies.
yes, please try out. If you go to Aladdin Nut House, I love that name. It sounds like you're never going to get out of there. I don't think he realizes what the name means. If
Our
you
magic carpet.
do tell Gary that you saw a show about Washington Boulevard and that you wanted to try it, because I think everyone is feeling nervous and concerned about maintaining their businesses. So I so appreciate seeing so many in the chat saying, I'm buying almonds. I will offer, and I'm saying this carefully because there aren't a million of you, but if you have questions about the cookies, you could go on to my own website, theurbanforager.co, and you could ask questions. So, but they're very easy. They're very easy. The main thing is don't over blend them. If you turn your batter into something like soup, you want to have texture. That's the hardest thing about it.
Oh, that's a good hint to know. So,
and that recipe is in the Urban Forager, but as Christine said, it's also on my website and also at the library website. So many ways to access it.
Shared that with us. Thank you.
I think the cremo is on there as well. Is that right, Christine?
Yes, that is
cremo and the curd. This is the time to start making curd as well. It's really easy and fun. Fruit curds.
Oh,
so.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I tell you, and as you all go to the Washington Boulevard and take your stroll, I think as Elisa says, it would be really nice to tell all of the food purveyors that you saw the show or you're familiar with the Urban Forager, and Elisa's helped you discover these places. So, yeah, people like that. And then, as Lisa says, everybody will chat with you and give you even more wonderful hints, things to get.
You will.
Yeah, so thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And we can't thank Elisa enough for all of this. And we're so glad that you wrote that Urban Forager book. And it must have taken a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Lots of wonderful samples, and I bet your family enjoys sampling everything.
I want to say just one concluding thing. From this cookbook, I have become very close friends to all of the chefs who were profiled, which is another way of, I think we're all looking for forms of connection, and food is one of the easiest ways to get to know people. But Rumi Mahmoud and I live 5 minutes away from each other, one of the chefs, and he's constantly bringing me food and dropping it off, and I'm doing the same. And Min Fan, the restaurateur, I bring her jam when LA County shut down all the restaurants, outdoor dining, I brought her 3 jars of jam as a sort of consolation gift. So it's a way of finding connections in a time that we're kind of far apart from each other. So here's a big virtual hug. Say goodbye.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you so much for presenting for us. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you all.